first to Mr. Caputo for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the officials for being here. I generally will just pose a question where we have officials, and whoever feels most that they can answer it best, please feel free to chime in. Now, there was some discussion about a security briefing and whether somebody who has a clearance can receive a security briefing. For instance, the leader of the NDP has said he would like to get a briefing. Can anything be divulged from the information in that briefing if a person receives a briefing, as in, can somebody then question the government based on the information in that briefing?
Mr. Chair, this is, I think it's a really important question and that speaks to the fact that as a nation, I think we're going through an evolution in how we're addressing national security issues. So this is a bit uncharted territory. In my experience, we have never seen politicians, leaders having classified, having security clearances and be in a position to receive information. We have seen in the past that some of these briefings, people who have received classified briefings have spoken publicly about what they were told. That it creates an issue because the information may not be exactly how it was divulged, and it also, the ability to protect sources and methods and the people who are gathering this information might also be at risk. So I do believe that there is an evolution that is required. That said, there are absolutely limits to what the leader of the opposition will be able to say. The question is, are there an ability to reduce the threat of foreign interference by having the information and being able to take some decisions? And I think this is the discussion point and the evolution of our system that is required now.
So, Mr. Vigneault, if I could ask then, if I receive a briefing tomorrow, could I then ask questions in the House of Commons specific to perhaps the names of the people or what I saw? I'm seeing your colleague shake her head. In other words, there's a proverbial muzzle based on what is learned in that briefing. Is that not right?
Mr. Chair, I would probably use a different characterization. I would say that the law would prevent the member from speaking. The challenge that we have is that there's the law and there's also the privilege in the House of Commons. And this is something that, again, in terms of the evolution of how the system should work, is if someone gets information in a privileged way and then, use the privilege of the House to divulge information, I think, we are in a bit uncharted territory of how this would be done. And that's why, as a professional intelligence person, my advice would be that there's a need for a lot of discussion about this to create a new modus vivendi for Canadians.
I understand that, and perhaps when I say muzzle, I mean the law would muzzle. So I'll ask the question in a different way. If an opposition MP receives a top-secret classified security briefing and learns top-secret classified information, including the raw intelligence that Minister LeBlanc just referenced, then would the MP be able to act on that information, or would acting on that top-secret information potentially violate national security law?
Thank you. I'll take that question, Mr. Chair. Yes, of course, they can act on it. And this is why recently I have offered to all parties to have a clear representative, in particular the leader, in order to receive those information and, for example, to be able to act during a by-election, be able to act during a general election, managing their caucus, for example. Also equipping themselves in terms of how they behave, what kind of events they are attending to, what kind of relationship they are keeping or not. So there's a lot of things that they can do when they are being armed with this information without, disclosing publicly the information they receive.
But they can't discuss the information is my point. When I say act, I'm saying deal with this information publicly, as in ask the government the hard public questions on this, and ask the government specific questions as to what is in the briefing. You can't do that. I think that's my point.
Minister Verny explained, the legislation we have to prevent that. But behind those legislations, there are some fundamental principles. Collecting information through intelligence processes, this is not a contradictory process. Ce n'est pas un processus contradictoire.
It's not a contradictory process.
The target of those collections are not in a position to defend themselves. And this is why, we talked about having the right balance between a very effective legislative framework when it comes to intelligence and national security, while also protecting human rights. And I do believe that disclosing names that have been collected through intelligence processes will be contrary to our privacy principles, but also contrary to our human rights principles.
Well, would it not be, the minister can disclose classified information when it is in the public interest. What could be more in the public interest than whether a person is putting an X on their ballot next to the name of somebody who has been compromised by a foreign state actor?
Maybe one thing that I can say, there's a lot of mechanisms to reduce the threat. For example, CSIS can do a threat reduction measure, a defense briefing. The leader can manage its caucus. We can do a démarche in front for the foreign actors. We can we can do what we call the PNG, persona non grata, for a consulate, for example. So a lot of things can be done
I understand
to reduce the threat.
Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt.
Thank you,
I just have a
Mr.
little
Caputo.
bit of time. What I'm saying is, what could be more in the public interest?
Mr. Caputo,
than that?
that's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you. We go now.
About similar subject matter, then he would say I violated the rules of national security. I know exactly what he's up to, and that is why I will continue to do my job, which is leader of the opposition, to hold him accountable. I will not be silenced. This is Canada, and in Canada we have the freedom of expression. Thank you.
Questions and comments?
They put on a big show in here. We've already passed a motion like this, by the way. The government didn't do anything because the NDP kept them in power. And back in committee, they do exactly the same thing. They speak, they go to hold press conferences and act all tough. Back in committee, all they do is give all the procedural support necessary for the Prime Minister to cover it up again and again and again.
So, Mr. Cooper, if you please, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister LeBlanc, you said moments ago that the House of Commons must be safeguarded from foreign interference. I completely agree with you in that regard, and yet the NSICOP report released this week unequivocally states that elected officials, including certain members of Parliament, are working wittingly, and I emphasize the word wittingly, with hostile foreign states, including frequently communicating with foreign missions, providing foreign diplomatic officials with privileged information, and sending secrets to intelligence officers of foreign states. I would submit that as long as the Prime Minister continues to cover up the names of these compromised MPs, a dark cloud will continue to hang over this place. So I put it to you again, who are the names of these compromised MPs? Who are they? What are the names? What are their names?
Mr. Chair, through you, I'll repeat the answer that I gave to Mr. Cooper's colleague. The release of that sensitive, highly secret intelligence information is governed by law. I think Mr. Cooper knows very well that
Minister, with respect.
Point of
Mr.
order.
Chair, I was trying to answer the question.
Ms. O'Connell on a point of order.
Mr. Chair, perhaps you need to provide a reminder to committee members that questioners must give equal amount of time for the witnesses to answer. And stop with your pretending of reading the book. I know your favorite thing to do on a Friday night is pretend to be chair, but Mr. Chair, please give a reminder of the decorum around this committee in dealing with witnesses.
Thank you. Well, let's
on the same point of order, Chair.
Mr. Janice on the same point of order.
Yeah, there's no requirement whatsoever for equal time. It's the member's time. That's well established. And whether you read the book on a Friday night or a Saturday night, it will say the same thing on that.
We're getting a debate here. Let us continue. Mr. Cooper, I would appreciate if you give the witnesses a chance to answer the questions you ask. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, well, with respect, Minister, I'm not asking you to release the intelligence. I'm not asking you to release sources and methods. I'm simply asking you to release the names. There is no legal impediment preventing you from doing that, preventing the Prime Minister from doing that. So why is the Prime Minister continuing to cover up the names to shield these MPs who are compromised by hostile foreign states?
Mr. Chair, far from it. The Prime Minister and our government have strengthened Canada's ability to detect and counter foreign interference. We're discussing today landmark legislation that the committee is working on that would strengthen the ability of our intelligence agencies and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to do the important work of holding those that violate Canadian law to account. So, Mr. Chair, again, I have every confidence that...
Minister, we already know that one former Liberal MP, the member for Don Valley North, received help from Beijing to secure the Liberal Party nomination, and we know that the Prime Minister was briefed about that during the 2019 election before that member was elected while he was a Liberal candidate, and the Prime Minister did nothing about it and covered it up for nearly 4 years until he got caught when it was reported in the Globe and Mail. The Prime Minister has a disturbing track record of putting the partisan interests of the Liberal Party ahead of transparency and protecting our democracy and national security. Isn't the real reason the Prime Minister won't release the names because some or all of these compromised MPs happen to be Liberals?
Mr. Chair, through you, I congratulate Mr. Cooper on the clip you probably just tried to get for social media. The simple answer is no.
How many compromised MPs are there? Since you won't release the names, how many are there? Just a number.
Again, Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper knows full well that the information that underlies the conclusions of our intelligence agencies or the RCMP is highly protected, sensitive information that often comes with caveats from foreign partners.
Minister, I asked you simply for a number. How many compromised MPs are there?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper knows very well, and I get the theatrics. He's very good at that. I think he should be perhaps given a gold star for theatrics. But he also knows...
Minister, this is about as serious as it gets, that we have members of Parliament working for hostile foreign states. You won't release the names. At the very least, Canadians deserve to know how many MPs are compromised. How many?
So, again, Mr. Chair, I explained earlier this week, and perhaps if Mr. Cooper is interested, the director of CSIS or others could explain the challenge of taking...
Minister, perhaps we can narrow it down. Are any in Cabinet? Are any sitting around the Cabinet table?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Cooper can pretend to be a prosecutor if he wants. I was...
Pretending to be anything. I'm asking you a very straightforward question as to how many compromised MPs there are, and are any in Cabinet. Just an answer.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. That's your time. The Minister may answer if he wishes.
No, Mr. Cooper doesn't seem to be interested in the answer. He's more interested in interrupting, so we'll go to the next question.
Provided an answer.
Thank you. We go now to Ms. O'Connell for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the witnesses for being here. Minister LeBlanc, has the leader of the official opposition, Mr. Poilievre, received his security briefing, or security clearance, sorry?
Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. O'Connell, no, he has not, because we've offered, as I think colleagues know, on a number of occasions to process the appropriate clearance for the Leader of the Opposition, so he could perhaps see some of this exact information that his colleagues seem so interested in us releasing, but he has not made such a request.
And is the offer to provide him that opportunity for security clearance still available to him?
Of course it is, Ms. O'Connell, and we were very pleased, for example, the Leader of the New Democratic Party accepted our offer, and we think that's a collaborative, constructive way to make Parliament to increase the confidence that Canadians would have in our democratic institutions.
So, Minister LeBlanc, Mr. Cooper just said this is an issue as serious as it gets, yet his leader refuses to receive a security clearance that would actually allow him to have the full information that, frankly, NSICOP members would have. It would allow him to be able to go to Canadians and his own caucus to say, listen, I've reviewed the information, I can't reveal the details. However, I feel confident that some information is uncorroborated. I feel confident that other information is further being pursued by law enforcement, but I feel confident in our democratic institutions. Instead, in, quote, the most serious issue as it gets, according to the Conservatives, they purposefully decide to be ignorant to the issue, instead throwing around fake sanctimonious accusations about numbers of compromised MPs, what that might mean. And, Minister, what this provides in the sanctimony of pure chosen ignorance by the Conservative Party is the fact that it will create mistrust and distrust in our democratic institutions with the ability to be informed. Their very own leader has the ability to be fully informed of what's going on in this serious matter. Instead, choose blind ignorance, which creates mistrust, distrust, and who benefits most from mistrust in our democratic institutions? Foreign states who hope to influence it. And Minister, it's also, accusations have also been thrown out about influence in the leader of the opposition's own leadership race. However, is it not completely inappropriate to start making accusations about some pieces of intelligence and funny enough, it's actually my time and I can make comments, but funny enough, they leave that accusation out of their comments. Do you find it irresponsible for a leader of the official opposition who hopes to be Prime Minister one day to be so ignorant and blind to, quote, such a serious issue, as serious as it gets?
So, Mr. Chair, through you to Ms. O'Connell, thank you for the question. And you're absolutely right. If the Leader of the Opposition was serious in understanding the information underlying the NSICOP report, and Ms. O'Connell has served on this committee of parliamentarians herself, so would know this better than I do, but the committee produced two reports. It produced a top-secret report for the Prime Minister and for our intelligence agencies, and it produced a report that was released publicly earlier this week. And the report that was released publicly, of course, was subject to all of the appropriate legislative protections, and Mr. McGuinty has spoken about this publicly. But if the Leader of the Opposition was interested in seeing the highly sensitive information that the Committee of Parliamentarians saw that informed their top-secret version of the report, he would simply have to indicate that he is prepared to receive the appropriate security clearances, and then he would have access to that information. So I think in the way, for example, the Leader of the New Democratic Party can and will. So to us, that is a responsible, thoughtful way in the difficult world of intelligence information that comes with caveats and the need to protect sources and methods. That, to me, is a responsible, thoughtful way to do it. It's not the path the Conservatives have chosen. And I thought your speculation as to some of the reasons, Ms. O'Connell, were absolutely valid.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, the Conservatives would like to pretend that this is somehow...
Don't forget to like, dislike, subscribe, and comment. Safe Space Cafe. And always, have a good day.